Remember that Shabbos room by your house?
Oh yeah, my mom was mad now when we told her that.
It's just stuff for me.
Yeah.
All ready?
Yeah.
All right, thanks for coming. So this presentation is called Judaism in Movies. So basically what this is it's a very long PowerPoint, and whenever I watch a movie and I notice like a Jewish theme or something from the Torah or plot-wise, throw it in here. So not everything in here is like super organized, but I'm gonna kind of show you a filtered version. And you guys showed me which movies you've seen and want to see, so I'm gonna try and focus on those, although most of them have a lot of checks. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, some of them are like more plot-based, some of them are more just about the themes, so here we go. Okay, so first one, how Willy Wonka inspired Exodus through Deuteronomy. Strike that, reverse it. So, this is how Exodus through Deuteronomy inspired Willy Wonka. And so, let's go backwards. So the entire movie is basically an allegory for the period where we're in the wilderness. So Willy Wonka is supposed to be parallel to Hashem. The children are supposed to be parallel to the Israelites. And each of the four children, besides Charlie, corresponds to one of the sins from the desert. And Charlie corresponds to Moshe, and Grandpa Joe, I think, corresponds to Yosef, right? So now that you kind of have that frame in your head, we're kind of gonna go through the details. And if you have a question, just ask it, but I might get to it. So, okay. So what happens right when they enter the factory? They go to that room where they have to sign that big contract, and the words get smaller and smaller and smaller until they can't read it and they don't know what they're signing, right? And so that's very similar to the part where they're at Sinai and they just agree to the covenant without actually knowing everything that's in there. And there's the quote from Exodus: "All that the Lord spoke, we will faithfully do." And so that kind of establishes the parallel between Willy Wonka and the tourists, right? So instantly.
Go back for a second.
Sure.
What was the second? Establishes Wonka as a parallel to the narrative of the Lord.
Yeah. So.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, that's right. So instantly, after they go through that contract, they start complaining because they go through this room where they're all smushed up, and literally they start murmuring like instantly, just like we did in the desert, right? Okay, so the first kid to get out on the tour, his name is Augustus Gloop. His parents are butchers, which is very similar to the fact that the first thing that the Israelites did in the desert was we asked for meat, and we were gluttonous about it, and God sent quail, right? And so that kind of establishes the first parallel, the first sin. So yeah, and it caused him to be eliminated from the Torah. So what happens after he goes into the river? Well, they get on the boat, they go through that like scary tunnel. And I think that's supposed to be imitating Sinai, right? Willy Wonka's talking all these cryptic messages. They don't understand, they're all scared. And there's a chicken beheading, by the way, that's kind of a fun fact in the actual movie. Yeah. So
Wait, what? There's a chicken beheading in that scene?
Yeah, they show a chicken beheading on the, as one of the cryptic visions in the movie. Yeah. So, this is probably the most stretch of all the characters, but I think that Violet is supposed to be parallel to Aaron's sons, because it was both of them were like an impulsive play, right? The alien fire, chewing the gum without thinking about it, right? The other thing is the alien fire is kind of similar to the fact that this is like the experimental room where they're not sure what's going to happen. So a little bit of a stretch, but I'll move on from that. Okay, we have this little piece of you-know-what right here. She is very parallel to Korah, right? Because she's narcissistic and ungrateful. And what happens to both her and Korah? They fall into the ground, or she falls into the pit, right? Also,
it's true.
Yeah.
She fell into a trash bin.
Yeah. And Korah falls into the ground, right? So. And then impatience. So the last kid, he's very impatient. He wants the chocolate through the TV, right? And what happens? Well, he sends himself and goes like that, right? And I think it's parallel to the spies, right? They want to go to Israel now. They don't want to wait. And They get killed by the Amalekites, right? So, also he's like a gunslinger, kind of rings the same bell. Okay, the Oompa Loompas. So, let's talk about them, those little things. What are they? Well, they sing songs. They manage and maintain Willy Wonka's factory, right? I just watched. They manage the punishments of the children, and they're green and orange. All right, the Levites. They sing songs. They manage and maintain the Mishkan and the associated objects, right? They punish the golden calf worshippers, right? They kill all of them. They're not green and orange. I couldn't reconcile that one, unfortunately.
I was like, what color are they gonna be?
I've never seen one of the original Levites, but anyway, this is an interesting one. So 17 years before the original book was released by Roald Dahl, archaeologists transcribed one of the fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it read, "Levi, Devi, diddly dee, we have come to punish thee. What do you get when you worship a calf? Counting 40 days isn't hard math." I'm kidding, that's all fake. that was not, that whole slide is fake. But the rest of the parallels you can kind of see. I like to think that's what the Levites sang when they were killing the,
I
anyway.
think you're gonna say it looks like chocolate.
Wait, can you
know,
go back? I
because-
want to read that. Is that supposed to be like an evil Oompa?
Yeah, Levi, diddly,
Yeah,
we have come to punish thee. Yeah, okay. Anyway,
Oh, right. Oompa Loompa Loompa.
exactly, the song, right?
Right.
Okay, let's talk about Moses real quick. So what was his one mistake? Does anyone know?
The water.
He
Water.
hit the rock.
He hit the rock, right? So one interpretation of that I read was that hitting the rock was him taking credit for producing the water instead of giving credit to God, right? And getting high on himself, like, oh, I'm so great, I produced the water. Well, what did Charlie do? Charlie Bucket got high on water. He drank the fizzy lifting drinks. They literally got high, and Willy Wonka later used it as a reason to not let him get the factory at one point in the movie. Another fact, Charlie Bucket is his name. Bucket is his last name, and a bucket is used to draw water, and you know Moshe means drawn from water. So there's another one there. Okay, Charlie's final test. He gives the gobstopper back after he's told he won't go, or he won't get the free chocolate, right? And it's revealed that Slugworth, which slug sounds like snake, right? I think he's supposed to be the Satan, you could say. And he was able to earn the factory back by giving the gobstopper to Wonka, not the Satan, right? Giving his allegiance to Wonka, not Slugworth, right? And that's a quote, so shines a good deed in the weary world, right? And then what happens? Well, in Deuteronomy, Moshe went up to the steps of the mountain and sees the entire land of Israel from above, right? And what happens at the end of the movie? Charlie's taken to the top in the elevator, and he sees the entire factory from above that he's going to inherit. So, basically the same thing plot-wise going on. There are a few more parallels. The children's moral character are reflected in the way that their parents raised them in the movie, right? You know exactly who to blame, the mother and the father, and then that's a line from Exodus, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and fourth generations. So same themes, right? If your parents are teaching you bad stuff, it's not going to go well. This is another thing. Everything in Willy Wonka's office is cut in half.
Oh, yeah.
And she's saying, like, God is incomplete without us. Willy Wonka is incomplete without, I guess, Charlie, you could say. So, more explanation there.
Hey, I want to read all of them. Okay, great.
Tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, cool. No, you're good, you're good. Okay, so some additional parallels. This is a quote, "Across the desert lies the promised land." Wonka literally says that in the movie. The promised reward for Wonka was chocolate for life. That you could say is like the material pleasures that we receive. And then the reward that Charlie didn't know about was getting the whole factory. And that you could say is like Olam Haba, right? So yeah. Oh, and this is some more stuff. Talmud says 80% of the Israelites never left Egypt, and only 1/5 of the kids actually made it. So it's another little thing there. And some dates, which are kind of interesting, but yeah. Okay, Beauty and the Beast is the next one. A lot of you guys have seen that. So this is very parallel to Jacob and Esau, right? You guys know that Gaston is the villain in this, and he wears red. He's a hunter. He has a bunch of antlers on his mantle. He's cocky. He's hairy. Like no one likes him. Well, everyone likes him, but he's kind of an evil person on the inside, right? And very parallel to how Esau is described. And then you have the Beast, which is very parallel to Jacob, right? And Beast, he on the inside he's good, but he's wearing animal skins, just like Yaakov was wearing animal skins. Havrusa pointed that out, and Yitzhak favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Again, hunter. Rivka favored Yaakov. What happens in this movie? Belle goes for the Beast and not Esau, right? So the woman selecting, the man, I guess, or the better man. Other notes. Very, very symbolic colors. Belle is wearing blue and white, the colors of Israel, and then the color of Jerusalem. Esau is shown with a pig, and Gaston is shown with a pig. Esau has also been compared to a pig before. Just how they act, right? And then you have some Adam and Chava imagery as well. The beast's name is actually Adam. Belle's father is the inventor. Castle, Garden of Eden, you get the idea, right? So, is that Rashi? No, it's French. Luminaire, he's like the light, and then the clock, obviously he's very cautious, represents mortality, right? Those themes going on. And then this is the throwaway. We'll explain that if you want, but okay. So this is the next one. This actually covers several movies, but it's an archetype that I noticed in Genesis, and that carries to many, many movies. So basically, the idea is you have a masculine figure, protagonist, and things are going well, and then all of a sudden, some tragedy, he loses his love interest early, and has to go on a long journey and basically leave his home in order to reconcile everything that's happened. And you see that with Yaakov, right? He loses Rachel at a very young age, and then what happens? He's down in the dumps. Yosef gets lost too. He has to go to Egypt in order to kind of reconcile and pick things up again, right? So I basically say that again right here. So Bruce and Rachel, literally, you have another Rachel right here. What happens? Bruce Wayne tragically loses Rachel, killed by the Joker, and becomes a cripple and a hermit for 8 years, is not doing so well. And then out of necessity comes out of retirement to save Gotham. And what happens at the end? He leaves his home with the new girl, Selena Kyle, to start a new life, right? Bond and Vesper, same exact thing, right? Bond loses Vesper tragically, and then the next movies, he's going on these crazy adventures to reconcile the death and get over it. And I would say the best parallel in terms of this archetype is actually Finding Nemo.
Nemo.
Yeah, so Marlin loses his wife tragically. All he has is Nemo, and then what happens to Nemo? He gets lost, right? And he has to go find him. Just like Jacob had to leave and find Yosef in Egypt in order to reconcile everything. So here are just a few more examples of this archetype. You can go through on your own and point out connections, but Padme and Anakin, Maximus and Gladiator, Michael Corleone and Apollonia, that's the Italian girlfriend that gets blown up in the car bomb, Cobb from Inception, Andy Dufresne, The Shawshank Redemption, although we'll talk about Shawshank later, Carl Fredricksen, Up, Baron von Trapp, Sound of Music, all these follow the exact same archetype. Okay, Harry Potter. So this is less plot-based, but more just like a lot of parallels and funny little themes. So you have Goyim and Muggles, that's the name for the other, right? You have a rabbi versus Dumbledore, they have the beards and the hats, and they own the school, right? You have Moshiach and Harry. Also, another fact, Moshe and Harry both have two sets of parents, one kind of tyrannical and one the real parents, right? And so that's another thing to think about. Yod wand spells tefillah, you get the idea. Yeah, more of that. Okay, Shawshank Redemption. Basically, Shawshank Redemption follows the plots of the end of Genesis and the beginning of Exodus. So both, and that should say Yosef, I forgot to correct the name. But Yosef and Andy are both thrown into prison because of result of adulterous acts, and both are actually innocent. Neither of them did anything wrong. Both eventually prove their competence and become in charge of the finances. So Yosef becomes in charge of Egypt's finances, and Andy Dufresne is doing all the taxes for all the prison guards and doing all their finances, right? Then what happens, we switch to Moshe, obviously, when we go to Exodus, but Andy Dufresne remains. They're both unable to leave, right? Paro and the warden have their hearts hardened and won't let them leave. And when they finally do leave, they take all the money. So Moshe takes all the gold and silver with him, and Andy, remember, goes to that big bank vault, takes all the money, and then they both escape to the desert. Mexican beach desert and, desert of Sinai. Barbie movie.
Barbie.
Okay.
Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
So, Barbie movie is basically a perverted allegory for the fall from the Garden of Eden. So what happened, I only watched the first half hour of this movie, I couldn't get through it, but from that first half hour, I came up with these slides. So, who knows what happens at the end?
Oh, and then like the best part.
Well, I'll never know, so.
I didn't see it. I did not
You
see
need
it.
you're not missing much.
Oh,
Not see it.
You need to see it.
Okay,
Really?
so what happens?
This would do like an
I'm on the same boat as you. It's not on my list.
Yeah, I know.
Alright, so what happens? Genesis 1:27. God first created an androgynous being, creating the male and female. It says right here in Midrash. What do we see in Barbie? We see trans Barbie. Right? Okay, no, that's a joke. But what happens? We have life in Eden. This is Barbie land, right? Two of them were naked, the human and his wife, but they felt no shame. Everything's good, nothing's wrong, right? Everything's great. The Kens have their role, Barbies have their role, you get the idea. What happens? Barbie realizes, oh my god, I'm gonna die. She literally says that in the movie. In Genesis you have, but as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat of it, for as soon as you do, you shall die, right? It's unclear what triggered this for Barbie, but they needed the beginning of the movie, so. What happens after that? You look at Ken, it's not good for the human to be alone. Ken is positioned as an opposing helpmate, Barbie, right? And then what happens? You meet the weird Barbie girl with a Birkenstock, and she's basically the snake in the garden. And she says, you can have this Birkenstock, but you'll go to the real world and learn all these truths, right? And same thing as the snake, like you'll go down to this lower world, and you'll know all these things. Well, he doesn't say the lower world, but he says you'll know good and bad, right? And what happens when they travel to the lower world? I mean, this is kind of a very minor detail, but they go east. That's the visual.
Towards Israel.
Well, yeah, and so it says east of Eden is where they went in Genesis, so something interesting. What happens when Barbie and Ken get to the real world? They are embarrassed. They're wearing these bright, flashy clothes. They feel self-conscious, right? They don't know what to do. And so, just like in Genesis, right, they perceive that they were naked. So what's the first thing that they do? They go and get cowboy outfits to fit in a little bit better. They go to the store, buy new clothes, just like they sewed together the loincloths in Genesis, right?
They stole it.
Okay.
They stole it.
Pirates of the Caribbean and the laws of Nida. So this is not a direct plot comparison, but a lot of the themes of like Nida and family purity actually show themselves in Pirates of the Caribbean. So one of the core themes is periods of separation and reunification, right? And before the period of reunification, obviously you have to go to a mikveh, you guys know that. And the ocean is the world's largest mikveh, right? So how perfect for Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, so we have Davy Jones and Calypso. These are actually the last two movies in the trilogy, but it's a relation that's corrupted by the malpractice of this act. Davy Jones, his job is to ferry souls around the ocean for 10 years, and when he went on the land, Calypso was not there, his lover, and so what happens, he gets very resentful, and he decides to stop doing his job, and he starts growing tentacles on his face. And it shows that he's corrupted, right? Will and Elizabeth. So they have a very parallel relationship, right? Throughout the movies, They're struggling with similar issues. By the middle of the third movie, they've kind of lost trust in each other. And at the end of the third movie, Will decides to marry Elizabeth, even though, you know, it's an inconvenient time. They're literally fighting a bunch of pirates. And right after the marriage, Will becomes cursed with the same curse that Davy Jones has to ferry the souls around. And so the sea kind of acts as the mikvah for the return, right? He has to be at sea and then he gets to come back. Another interesting connection, the moon cycle. It lasts 28 days, same as the Nida cycle, same as the tides of the sea. The moon controls the tides. So all kind of in the same boat, no pun intended. And then you have some other parallels here. Rachel sits on the idol to hide the idol from her father. It leads to her death. And in these movies, Elizabeth has that amulet from the first movie, which eventually sets the events into motion that leads to her father's death. Jack Sparrow has a very similar relationship, except it's with his ship, because the ship is his true love, right? Black Pearl. Being unified and separated, unified, separated. So yeah. Okay, Star Wars. So, very similar. Yeah. So Star Wars has a lot of character comparisons to Shmuel 1. So Darth Vader, very similar to Shaul. Luke, very similar to David. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, Shmuel. So, and the Death Star is Goliath. So what happens, Luke uses the Force to aim perfectly at a giant space station and destroy it. And David has faith that he will aim perfectly with his sling to hit Goliath right in the spot to kill him. And it's like both are impossible tasks, right? Obi-Wan also brought up Vader. And then Luke, once Vader became evil, and you see that Shmuel anoints Shaul, and then once Shaul is no longer king in God's view, Shmuel appoints David, right? Lion King has a very similar thing. I'm not going to explain it or go into it, but yeah. Okay, Incredibles. So, yeah, it's a good one. Okay, so Incredibles is about adjusting to exile, I think. So what happens, they're these great superheroes, and then all of a sudden they're told by their society that they can't be superheroes anymore and they have to go into hiding. And so they mention in the movie, every couple of years, they move around town and skip and try and hide because they get found out, right? And so one of the themes is kind of defeating Amalek, right? Amalek would be Syndrome in this movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Also, fun fact, how was Amalek created? Timnah was denied from being Jewish, right? And she became all resentful. And yeah. So
that's what happened to that kid.
So what happened to Syndrome, right? He wanted to be a super, and then Mr. Incredible said no, go away, and then he took all his resentment and tried to kill all the supers, right? So same themes.
Like the villain in Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
Taiwan.
Red hair, right? Like Esau, right?
The ginger.
Oh wait, let's go back. I had one more thing.
Did you hear these connections somewhere, or did you come up with them?
When I see something, I put it in here.
Oh, I love that.
Let's see. Oh, Elastigirl. She wants to assimilate, and Mr. Super, he wants to be super, right? And Elastigirl's name, by the way, is Helen, which is kind of an interesting connection. If anyone knows what Hellenization is, it's assimilating to Roman culture, right? So, okay, that's okay. This is the end. These are things I'm working on but haven't really finished. So yeah.
Awesome.
If there are any questions, say something.
Solid.
How do you think of this stuff?
How
Do
long
you just
did it
watch
take?
the movie and think that oh, it's connected to something more?
Yeah.
Or do you research it after you watch the movie?
No. I research it to make sure no one's come up with the idea.
Oh, so
But actually, not all of them I've done. Willy Wonka I did, and
What about movies that are actually based on things from the Torah?
I'm sure there's stuff in there.
Prince of
Yeah.
Egypt?
I'd be disappointed if there weren't.
There's other parallels there.
All right, we're gonna go over the Prince of Egypt now.
I was about to say.
I love Prince of Egypt. It's such a good movie.
Anyway.
Heaven Almighty.
They actually
Any comparison to
they have to in the actual
Superman?
like the Superman in the song.
The two sets of parents, yeah.
He was sent to they have to watch this from his planet
Yeah.
to be saved, and Moshe was put in the
Yeah.
to
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the pod, right?
And
Oh, that's wonderful,
and
yeah.
found by other parents, and then
I like
I didn't
that.
make it up. So but
Okay, wow, that's
Yeah,
good.
you
That's
can
really
look
good.
it up.
Okay.
Superman to
Huh.
the whole thing, the whole world.
Okay, thank you.
Sheila, are you trying to like make sure nobody's done it because you wanna put this out there, like, as
I
a-
don't care.
Really?
Yeah, I just want, like, everyone should
should,
know,
it's cute.
everyone should know that you can't avoid the Torah. It goes through everything, and so even if there's a plot structure or a character arc that is really interesting, it's probably been done before, right? AKA the Torah. So.
That's very cool.
A lot of games in theater and movies and shows, whatever, is like the good versus evil. So
Yeah.
it's always gonna be, you're always gonna have like certain parallels that you can, look at all the movies that have like good versus evil type of scenes. And then you can like find some.
Also, have any of you guys seen The Dark Knight Rises?
No.
No?
Like, if you really
Yeah,
find-
there's some more stuff in there as well.
really find like-
All right, thank you guys.
Alright.
Holly, thank you so much for sharing.
Your master's thesis in the
I was actually
making.
really excited all week for this.